please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténgase alejado de las puertas. To our new listeners, we welcome you aboard our podcast Highway in the Sky, and hope you've enjoyed the past week. For those of you standing, please hold on to your headphones at all times, and stand clear of the doors. For the comfort of others, no trolling please. Thank you, and enjoy the DisCast.
Hey, what is up guys, it is Ryan, and welcome to the DisCast. Today is Wednesday, April 15th, 2015, and it is shortly after 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Darren, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
So you're just nodding through my intro, wanting me to finish as soon as possible.
Yeah, get done. We got a big show today.
We do have a big show. Big show. We're going to be going through an amazing article that was published on Fast Company last night into this morning about the birth and the development and the release and the impact of MyMagic Plus. It's called The Messy Business of Reinventing Happiness. I'm going to send you guys a link in just a minute, and we're going to get on through it. We're going to go through it. It's about 9,000 words, and we're definitely going to have a good time.
So I have elected to not read this prior to the show,
okay,
with the exception of a few quotes you gave me, because I wanted to save my reaction to this kind of for the show. So
okay, awesome. I can't wait. It's going to be a good time. I know I gave the link to a few other people earlier today, and they also haven't read it, so I'm the only person here who's read it so far. So yay.
You should just stop giving links to people.
I sure, you know. But, you know, it's definitely a good article. I think you're all really going to enjoy it, and we're going to have a good time. Also, we are currently redoing our website because our old host had to drop us, so we are starting up on a new host, so everything looks different, everything looks very bare bones. That's because it is right now. Yeah. So we're going to be going through and working on that, getting all that ready, and we're soon going to get our audio-only RSS feed and iTunes podcasts back up. Yes. After,
what has it been, like a year?
It's been almost a year. It was last May that we had to stop because we had some issues with our old host. We just never changed until now because we were getting it for like $2 a month or something stupid. So now we're actually
really cheap.
Yes, but now you know we got to spend some money, which is all right. Yeah. Which means we need your help with donations, which is going to be great.
Donation link that doesn't exist right now.
Yes, but there's a PayPal button down in the description on the Twitch page, I believe.
Yeah, so if you watch on Twitch, you can go ahead and directly donate.
Also on our YouTube channel, there should be a, on all the videos, there should be a thing in the description. Not positive about that. Another way you can help us out is if you have a brand or something that you want to have promoted on the show, you can do so. One of our sponsors is Spectra Radio. Darren, he's in the chat today. I think everyone kind of knows what he's all about, but Darren, come on.
Yeah, I'll run us through anyways. Check out SpectraRadio.us. Spectra Radio is a 24/7 Disney audio service. So if you enjoy Disney audio like we do, if you enjoy Disney like we do, go ahead and check out SpectraRadio.us for a nice radio station dedicated to all Disney audio.
Yeah, mostly Disney parks, but also goes through and does a bunch of Disney movie music as well, and it's all good time. Yes, and if you have a brand you'd like us to promote, you can
feel free to tell us.
Yes, let us know in the subject of your PayPal donation, and we definitely will do so. Or wait until the donate link is back up, and we'll have an actual like dedicated thing for you guys. So, gotta get ready for that website redevelopment. We're gonna have to take a while.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that this weekend. We'll clean everything up.
Yes. Of course, we say that, but whenever we say we'll do that this weekend,
I did say on the show last week that I was gonna have it done for this week. So,
wow. Well, you really dropped the ball there. You're gonna have to give me the Wordpress login info because I don't have that.
If it's gonna get, I was telling everybody last week on the show that most of this is stuff that I'm just gonna toss over to you.
Yep, I know the deal. I've done this before. So yes, that is that. We're gonna do a trivia question this week. So we'll move on to some trivia. But here's the deal with the trivia question. If you pay attention during tonight's show, you will get the answer. So as long as you're paying attention during the part of the show, you'll know what the answer is and you'll be able to put it on, if you don't know it already. But keep in mind, the answer that you know right now might be wrong, because if you asked me what the answer to this was a couple hours ago, I would give you the incorrect answer. So just throwing it out there. And the question is, what was the first lab area testing for MyMagic Plus? So what was the first testing lab for MyMagic Plus? Where was it in the parks? If you think you know the answer, do not put it on the Twitch chat. Head on over to Twitter, tag us at DisCast Show using the hashtag DisCastTrivia for your chance to win and be put on our splendid trivia card of winners. Who we always say will get prizes for the past almost 2 years, and they haven't gotten anything yet. So, you'll get something eventually. I will keep this list however long I have to until you guys get things. if I am like 80 years old, you'll still be getting stuff, and I'll send it, you know. I probably won't be able to contact any of you, but make sure you keep using your Twitter accounts or Skype accounts for these usernames, because that's how I'm going to contact you. I mean, we don't even talk to most of these people now, but, you know, it's been like a year. So, whatever.
Do you think we should message, like, the most obscure one, be like, hey, are you going to claim your prize or what?
That'd be really funny. Let's see, who have we not talked to in the longest time? Nathan Spain 1. Haven't seen him since, like, September of 2013. Call him up. Everybody is a winner, Disney Chris. You're very right. And that's it for our trivia, and we'll get back to that later. So make sure you're paying attention for that. All right. So here is the article, everyone. I'm posting it in the Twitch chat right now.
Is the answer Harry Potter World?
The answer is indeed Harry Potter World. How'd you know? It's not it. But there you go, guys. In the Twitch chat, you can click on that link if you want to read along with us. I will be reading it out loud, obviously. So. Here we go. It is by a lovely man named Austin Carr.
You know what's amazing about this article?
What?
It goes through the entire thing without using MyMagic.jpg.
I know, right?
It uses every other picture, like every other famous picture of Magic fans.
MyMagic.jpg.
Except for the one that we use.
I was incredibly surprised at that. You said you didn't read it, but you went.
I just scrolled through the pictures right now.
Got it. Oh, you're like, oh, that's way too many words for me to read. Oh no, I see it. It's on the timeline. It's on the timeline.
The timeline?
Look on the timeline, go down to 2013, and you'll see it.
Well, that's not... I wouldn't really count that as, like, in the article.
It's part of the article. Anyway.
That's debatable.
So, here we go. We're going to start up right now, because we're going to comment on it. And we'll see how far we'll see. We'll get through. We'll see how long it takes.
I was almost impressed by this article, but that inclusion of the picture...
Very sorry. So, the messy business of reinventing happiness inside Disney's radical plan to modernize its cherished theme parks. Now, we read an article from Wired a few weeks ago, and it was really, like, glorifying MyMagic+. This doesn't... It's not that biased. It's not that skewed. It really goes into the...
This is the history of it, rather than, like, you could do this, this, and this. It seems like it wasn't, like, paid off, kind of like what the Wired one was.
Right. Well, I don't think it was paid off. I just think
I'm saying it was kind of presented that way. Like, there were no bad sides to it.
Right. And so, anyway, here we go. There's a lot more insight in this article, too, which I like. So, Bob Iger wanted approval. It was February 2011, and the Walt Disney Company's CEO gathered his board of directors inside an intimate theater at the company's Team Disney headquarters in Burbank, California. There, just the night before, Iger held an early screening for the board of Captain America: The First Avenger, months prior to its release. The soon-to-be blockbuster served as another sign that Iger's bet on reinvigorating Disney's movie business through his acquisitions of Marvel and Pixar was paying off big. Now, with his directors reassembled and sitting in the first few rows of the theater, Iger set his sights on his next gamble, his boldest yet, to reinvent the brand's most beloved asset, Disney's iconic parks.
Do you want to read this entire thing, or you want to switch off, or...?
I don't know. We can eventually switch off if you want to.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It's divided into sections. We'll each read a section.
Sure. Iger planned to pump nearly $1 billion into this venture called MyMagic+, a sweeping plan to overhaul the digital infrastructure of Disney's theme parks, which would upend how they operated and connected with consumers. At the core of the project was the Magic Band, an electronic wristband that Iger envisioned guests would use to gain entry to Disney World and access attractions, make purchases at restaurants, etc., etc. You know what? We don't have to go through the history, because we know the history, like, you know, the back stuff. So we're going to go into the beginning of the pitch. So we're skipping down to, in the middle of the paragraph that starts as Iger, who joined Disney when it acquired ABC, when it says, "That's why." So here we go. "That's why, on this Sunday afternoon, Iger now sought the full support of his board, an intimidating group that included Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg, the former CEOs of Starbucks and P&G, as well as the current head of BlackBerry and the chair of Estée Lauder. Apple's CEO, Steve Jobs, also a board member, was then too sick to attend, though he would play a role in MyMagic+'s development. For the pitch itself, Iger turned to Tom Staggs, the chairman of Disney Parks and Resorts Division, who had overseen the MyMagic+ initiative for the last year. Staggs gave opening remarks with the program. His deputy in the project, Executive Vice President Nick Franklin, then took over, walking the board through the finer points of MyMagic+ while showing off prototypes of the Magic Band. They had a black display case emblemized with the words "Choose a Flavor" that contained 24 colorful Magic Bands, neatly arranged like a box of chocolates. The board, which had been provided materials breaking down the program's costs, gave positive feedback throughout the presentation. Sandberg interjected at one point to ask whether MyMagic+ could be used to track her kids at the park, since she always worries about losing them in the crowds. Cheryl, first of all, we don't lose anybody's kids, Franklin responded wryly, as he recounts for me in a recent conversation, and I can promise that we'll never lose your kids. The room erupted with laughter, and the rest of the presentation went off without a hitch. The board decided to back the project unanimously, and the room swelled with palpable excitement for what this historic decision could mean for Disney's future. Iger himself talked about how important MyMagic Plus will be for the company. According to people familiar with the meeting, how it will change the fundamental nature of Disney's parks experiences and have implications for the company's broader business. And the board broke into applause, yada yada yada, and then Iger looks directly at Staggs and utters words that he'll say many times throughout this article. "This better work," he said bluntly and sternly. "This better work." And he repeats it again, "This better work." Now, he goes on to say this is going to be the story Disney doesn't want us to hear. And that's because it's not all, you know, lollipops and happiness when it comes to MyMagic Plus. As we know through our experiences and following the news stories. A lot of
testing and development and a lot of troubleshooting.
And of course, since the first episode of the show, we've been saying what we think's been going on in Disney's head, what we think's been the problems, what we think's been going on. But in truth, we have no idea. And that's why these kinds of stories, you know, a retrospective look at what's been going on for this time, are so great, because it gives us, you know, real insight into things from people who have left the company, people who are currently working at the company, people who, you know, are speaking only on terms of anonymity because they don't want to lose their job. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously, Disney World is not an amusement park, it's a metropolis. We all know that. Later in the article, they'll talk about how the communications network is the size of San Francisco's. You know, so it's no small feat.
It's a big task.
And the theme parks play an essential role in Disney's effort to cement its company, characters, and products into the lives of families around the world. The more Disney movies, TV shows, and characters permeate our culture, the more people go to the theme parks, the more traffic the parks get, the more demand is created for toys, apparel, DVDs, and sequels. We know this. We know that Disney's parks develop thing kind of like is the engine for the rest of the company. It's the most, you know, it's the most reliable. It really helps everything else go in the company. It creates hype for the toys, apparel, DVDs, as they said, and then those, in turn, go back to the park. So it's like a nice vicious cycle, you know, a good vicious cycle, I don't know what the word for that is. We're going to skip down a little bit.
Just take out vicious.
Pretty much, a cycle that works. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go. In the mid-2000s, however, Disney executives had reason to worry about the future of the business, which we've talked about many times before. Disney World, park's crown jewel, seems to be losing its luster. According to multiple sources, certain key metrics, including guests' intent to return, were dropping. Around half of first-time attendees signaled they would likely not come back because of long lines, high ticket costs, and other park pain points. Simultaneously, the stunningly fast adoption of social media and smartphones threatened the relevance of the parks. If Disney wanted these more tech-oriented generations to love it as much as their parents, who would grow up with fewer entertainment alternatives had, it would be to embrace the change now. We were failing to recognize key consumer trends that were starting to influence how people interacted with brands, said one former executive. And this was called the burning platform. He explains, if we miss out on that next generation of guests, suddenly our burning platform is fully on fire. Panic mode. Which is obviously a big deal. And now, do you guys remember back in the beginning, before MyMagic Plus was totally a thing, there was always this talk of next generation things?
Yeah.
Right? And that's because in 2008, they officially kicked off the Next Generation Experience project. This is when the article starts to get good. That was all the, you know, introductory stuff. This is the meat and potatoes of what's going on.
Yeah.
So, in 2008, the Parks Division kicked off the Next Generation Experience project. Spurred by Jay Rasulo, who was then the chairman of the division, Parks President Al Weiss and Disney World President Meg Crofton formed an exploratory team following an initial round of technology research and financial modeling in 2007. Jay Rasulo, you guys might remember, was the rumored opponent to Tom Staggs for the CEO position. And it seems to be that Tom Staggs has won, but, you know.
You never know.
Founding five were Andy Schwab, Eric Jacobson, Kevin Rice, Jim McPhee, and John Paget. By Valentine's Day 2008, Rasulo and Weiss had gathered the team in strict secrecy and told them, in so many words, to reinvent the vacation experience and keep Disney World relevant. That was the initial goal, and that's when the people came back with a picture of Magic Kingdom with no, you know, no things or anything.
No what?
With no turnstiles. Remember that original picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. While most observers view Disney's parks as kingdoms of escapism, Neil Gabler, in his definitive biography of Walt Disney, argues that their success actually derives from crafting a better reality than the one outside, while with a reassuring control and order where all is harmonious. But in the ensuing weeks, working from a trailer behind Epcot, the Founding Five started digging into the problems that made the reality of Disney World something less than harmonious. There were the endless lines for rides, food, and bathrooms, parents juggling maps, hotel keys, baby carriages, and bottles of SPF 50, and kids pulling families on long treks to visit every attraction. The park was filled with complications, such as a tiered ticketing system with wonky rules. Families felt obligated to divide and conquer given the ticket prices. The team created diagrams illustrating how families seeking to maximize their time would crisscross Cinderella Castle at the center of the park as often as 20 times per day. Worse yet, the swarms of people. On average, 8,000 to 10,000 guests flow through the park's main entrance every hour. On the surface, we had super happy guests, but in reality, we were making them go through so much hassle at the park that down the road they would simply say, "No mas!" As McPhee, who had the look of a Division II offensive coordinator, admits, Disney World was on the verge of becoming dangerously complex and transactional, which some people would argue that it's becoming that more so now, with the Next Generation Experience stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah, but anyway, that's when the project got its code name, Next Generation Experience, or NGE. And then they found themselves in perpetual shuttle between Burbank and Orlando, going through the to the executives, back to the parks and everything. And this is the paragraph right here where the Magic Band is initially thought of. On an early flight, Paget, who looks as open and eager as a Toy Story character Woody, had a breakthrough. Flipping through his Sky Mall catalog, he landed on a page featuring Try-On Z, a magnetic wristband that promised to reduce muscle soreness while simultaneously improving one's golf swing. The team started to consider whether Disney could create an electronic band that could digitally carry everything a guest might need: park tickets, photos, coupons, even money. It would give guests entry to Disney World, pay for goods at retail shops, and unlock their hotel room doors. It would be a virtual key to the Magic Kingdom. So that was it. It was Paget, who was looking through a Sky Mall catalog on one of their many flights.
You know what's amazing is, we look at stuff from the end standpoint, right? We're at the, I guess you would say the end of, the secrecy era, where pretty much everything that's going to be a part of MyMagic Plus has been rolled out, and just seeing everything as it came together is truly fascinating, because we throw it off as, oh, this makes sense, why wouldn't you have everything just controlled from one space? But you go back less than 10 years ago, crazy idea. Just say we're gonna have fast pass, but no more paper fast passes, and no more room keys or turnstiles. It's all these crazy ideas that they just put together.
Yeah, I know. And so Iger and Rasulo came to... Okay, let's get back for a second. To work as magically as planned, the team built an ideation lab inside an abandoned attraction called Body Wars within Epcot's discontinued Wonders of Life Pavilion. They called their wearable prototype the X-Band, X being short for experience. Ew, X-Band. I think I like Magic Band a lot more. That's why those people don't come up with the branding. And constructed a makeshift model out of a strip of Velcro, plastic liner from Home Depot, and a small RFID tag, which would allow the band to wirelessly communicate with other devices. The group, showing increasingly excited about the potential of NGE, eventually sought resources to further build out a vision for the initiative. Iger and Rasulo came to the Body Wars lab, and Iger had a chance to play around with their Magic Band prototype in an early NGE presentation. Wearing the device, which wasn't actually functional at the time, on his wrist, Iger told the team, according to several people in attendance, and this is a very Iger quote right here, "This little thing is going to be special. If I gave you more money, could I have it faster?"
I love how he's so accepting of the fact that he's in charge of, a multi-billion-dollar company. He's like,
why license third parties? We could just buy them
get
all.
It done.
I like Iger. Why license third parties? We could just own them all. And then, if I gave you more money, could I have it faster? It's a very CEO thing to say, very Iger thing to say. That's what what happened over there. Yes, Spectra. They were initially using that for the to test everything. I mean, obviously we know they moved later on, but yeah, and it's in Body Wars. And the funny thing is, I think the attraction's pretty much still ready to go.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't that much space, obviously. Now, thanks to brands like ESPN and Pixar, much of Disney is known for a creative approach to business, not the parks division, which we know. The rest of Disney is younger, more progressive risk takers, but parks is not, explains one former high-level company executive with strong ties to NGE. It's built to be industrial and resilient, for consistency and volume. It's not built for change. I think if you look at Disney from the past, if you look at the parks of the past, couple of years, the past 10 years, past 20 years, it's been mostly keeping to the same thing that they're doing. Arguably, the division's core competency isn't creativity, but turning creativity into predictable operation. That's what Imagineering does to creativity, and the parks people actually turn it into things that work.
Yeah.
While the parks do regularly introduce new rides, the division is intent on preserving the spirit of Disney's tradition. The rickety nostalgia of rides like It's a Small World, which has barely changed its debut at the 1964 New York World's Fair. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's how multiple company sources describe the division's ethos. Every corporate rule breaker has to figure out a strategy to combat naysayers, the keepers of these traditional flames. The rebels of NGE knew that secrecy was critical if they were to build out the vision without interference from the broader organization. Parks has tried big, transformative effects before, but most failed because the culture killed them, the former high-level says. That's partly why the NGE team went outside the company for help. Paget, who led the development of the Magic Band, brought on third-party partners, including designers from the storied San Francisco firm Frog, which signed on in mid-2009. So,
the part about the culture killed them, would you say that if the masses' reaction, you remember when MyMagic Plus was first introduced, and the general consensus amongst Disney fans everywhere was this sucks, this is awful. That's clearly changed with a lot of people now. But if this is why keeping it in secrecy was so crucial to the project, because if they had pushed it forward like a few years earlier, would have destroyed the project. By the time it was introduced, it was already done and set. There was no more changes could have been done to it. Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you don't want people to hear a little bit of information and not everything. Oh, I heard they're working on an electronic wristband. And everyone's like, what? That's stupid, Yeah. You don't know the whole story. You make inferences, you make generalizations, and that can harm, that can harm your mindset on something. So when you see everything when it's done, and you'll see that once they show the executives, like, their stuff later, you'll see how they kind of take that into effect. Now, the NGE team had big dreams for the Magic Band. It would need to interact with short and long-range sensors that would be installed around the park. The short-range sensors would let guests scan their Magic Bands at sales terminals in Disney Park stores, to pay for merchandise, for example, or to seamlessly check in at their hotel. The long-range sensors would allow Disney to track guests as they navigated the park. The potential benefits were manifold. By monitoring where crowds are forming, the company could better optimize flow. This is what I said, of how they're going to use long-range sensors. Yeah, they know where you are, but it's for efficiency's sake. It's for figuring out where the guests are. So say one section of Magic Kingdom is becoming overwhelmed with guests, operators could immediately respond with a character parade around the corner. Right? So say there's tons of people like clogging up this one little area. Okay, we'll send out the Pooh characters over here near, get everyone to go over there. And that's some crazy stuff.
That's an interesting way to think about it. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
About pushing characters towards where there's more guests.
Where there's less people, so that way they gravitate over there.
Or you, like, if there's, like, two rides next to each other that have massive lines, you put a character in the middle to kind of diffuse the lines a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure it's something that they do. And obviously, once they have people's locations, they can do that so much more effectively. Right?
Yeah.
And also, this kind of traffic management wouldn't just be a service to customers, it could also help Disney fit more guests in the parks. Which it has, which we'll see a stat from Stags later on. I'm sorry I keep saying we'll hear about more later on, but kind of this article, everything, all the big stuff at the end.
It's a massive article.
It is massive, massive, massive. But all this beginning stuff's kind of important to get the end stuff of what's going on, so that's why we're reading. The Magic Band will also collect valuable consumer data. Insiders say the company historically knew little about its guests, even its most loyal ones. We just treated everybody with it as a giant blob of people, said the former longtime manager involved with NGE. It was time to figure out who our customers were so we could better serve them and stop delivering this one-size-fits-all experience. This project eventually ballooned to include a collection of outside contractors such as Accenture, HP, and Synapse, as well as smaller consultants. These teams, along with Frog and NGE crew, dreamed up one innovative idea after another. They mocked up new payment portals in the hopes that guests could one day sync their credit cards with the Magic Band to buy goods. This sounds very similar to what Apple's doing now with the whole abolish the wallet kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, obviously Steve Jobs was on the consulting board for this stuff. He was sick, but I know he was still kind of, working with Apple and stuff like that. I wonder if this has been in development for this long on Apple's end. Right?
I wouldn't say so. I don't think it's been
Well, do you think, like, they thought, hey, guys, remember how Disney did this? Like, do you think that was ever even, like, a thought? Because obviously...
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'm just sure that was much later than the Magic.
Right, yeah.
Because, think about how much more the Magic Band gets done, and...
It's been done sooner.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, obviously, you do have to wait for technological advances in batteries, especially when it comes to those little watches and stuff like that. And also, NFC was not really a thing then. It was really all RFID, which is how this works. And I'm going to tell you guys later in the article about how I think that, judging by what Tom Staggs told this man who wrote the article, I'm going to tell you how my opinion changed about, the Apple Watch's future in Disney. Later on, we'll see. Now, they imagine FastPass Plus, blah blah blah, to buy Magic Bands to buy goods. The traditional turnstiles can be replaced by sleek digital access posts designed by Frog. They planned a radical new restaurant, eventually named Be Our Guest, where patrons could pre-order food online and have it magically delivered to their tables when they sat down. A character like Goofy, with access to real-time data, could even wish happy birthday to a child without prompting. Obviously, Goofy doesn't talk, but, you know, stuff like Mickey, who can talk at Main Street Theater now.
Yeah.
So, it seemed time had finally come to say farewell to old-school inefficiencies like birthday buttons. It's impossible, of course, for such a big project to remain a secret. As other groups within Disney learned of NGE, the pushback was huge. You had operations pushback, security and fraud pushback, creative pushback. There was never any shortage of pushback. There was much for naysayers to fault, starting with costs. For example, the earliest bill of materials estimate for the Magic Band was $35, 87,000% more expensive than the 4-cent paper tickets Disney historically relied on. You had folks going, hey, this will drive up our costs. Hey, why are you taking away our control of the turnstiles? Recalls one former senior manager of the NGE team, who had grown to several dozen employees by late 2009. Whenever anyone would press Parks chairman Jay Rasulo to address these concerns, the senior NGE team member recalls, Rasulo would respond, well, we're heading down this path. This is the direction we're going. And the insiders say the Frog team found the internal struggles withering. They faced opposition from a powerful corporate force, Disney's Imagineers. The stewards of Walt's creative legacy, Imagineers are responsible for design and construction of the company's theme parks, from the most obscure visual Easter eggs hidden on Tom Sawyer Island to the all-engrossing story experiences of such large-scale rides as Haunted Mansion and Tower of Terror. The Frog industrial design team really pissed off the Imagineers, stepping all over their toes and fighting turf battles, explains one insider. The Imagineers pushed back at one point, multiple sources confirm, and they demanded the individual resumes of each Frog designer assigned to the project, a move that some perceived as a personal attack. The Imagineers and the Frog people did not get along during any of this. Obviously a little bit of conflict of interest. The Imagineers was historically more about creativity, and the Frog people were more about, hey, we gotta be practical about this. And so it came to a point where the Imagineers were like, okay, that's it. We want the resumes of all of you to make sure you're, like, you know, cracked up to this. And, the tussle over digital access points, where customers would use their Magic Bands to enter each ride, was typical of the dysfunction between Frog and Imagineering. Frog envisioned a waist-high stand featuring the outline of Mickey Mouse's head, with the Magic Band reader embedded. Do you remember the blue poles with the blue Mickey thing on them? That was, at first, all of the MyMagic Plus things in the beginning of testing? That's what this is. And Walt Disney Imagineering wanted to uniquely stylize them for the attractions, which they've, you know, kind of compromised with now. And their preferences reflected their deepest goal, which is to protect the sanctity of children's imaginations as they engage with real-life fairy tales at the park. Joe Rhodes said this: if I'm supposed to be living with fairies, fairies don't have iPhones or Magic Bands. He makes a valid point.
You know what's amazing?
What?
Is how persistent the Frog team is in all of this. Like, well, they are getting ripped apart by everybody. There was literally, except for the high up executives of Disney, everybody is ripping them apart and hating them.
Yeah, I mean, it comes to a job security thing. When you're working at a company and you have this outside team coming in and doing things that you normally do, or threatening to take away what it is that you get paid to do, your job can be in jeopardy. You know? You know, I don't know if I read it already, or it's soon, but what happens is you have people like, what if people worked in, what if someone worked in paper ticketing in the past? Their job might be irrelevant after this, and so they're going to, you know, obviously be afraid of these people. Right? They're designing something that's going to take away my job. What? I don't want that. So yeah, the Frog team was aghast. they felt the Imagineers' criticism went against basic user experience design. To them, the issues came down to usability and ergonomics. Each access point needed to have the predictability of a light switch, so guests could locate them easily. They eventually compromised, having posts have consistent features, but had to design with more thematic flourishes, which we know. And the Imagineers did a torpedo on a number of other Frog concepts. They did not like what they were going for, because they're too, you know, functional for them. They need to have some creativity in there. That's kind of, that's what their problem was. It was such a reactive environment. There were disagreements between Frog, parks operators, and marketing folks, disagreements between hotel and theme park operations, disagreements between technology and infrastructure guys. It's crazy. What I think the problem is what happens is, in the past, all of these things, operations, resorts, theme park, you know, marketing, they all were different branches of the company.
Yeah.
Right? But now, they all
kind of have to collide together and work.
Yeah, like that's one thing which is doing all of the jobs. The thing with computers is, and any kind of new technology, I think we've especially seen it with the rise of computers, it's connecting. Yeah, like everything gets despecialized to a way. Like if you can work with computers, you can do all the specialized labor that everyone else does by hand. So everything kind of connects together with this technology, and you see that with any new technology. Now okay, here we go. In January 2010, there was a change at the top. As part of a reported bake-off engineered by the CEO Iger to see who might one day be better suited to succeed him, Tom Staggs and Jay Rasulo swapped roles. We all remember this, right? Staggs, who had served as Disney's CFO since 1998, replaced Rasulo as the head of parks. Rasulo became CFO. Staggs took over sponsorship of NGE from Rasulo and followed through on Rasulo's intention to appoint an executive vice president, Nick Franklin, to oversee the program day to day. At this point, the project took on a new layer of complexity. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. Do you remember when Tom Staggs became, Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember D23, they made this hilarious video, and this is like what sealed the deal of this guy's gonna be great in charge of the parks.
Oh, the one where he was going around doing all the roles?
He went around and he did like every single role at the parks.
Love that video. If you guys haven't seen that, you definitely have to see it.
It's such a good video.
Darren, get him a link. Get him a link and put in chat.
Okay. And all the comments on him, it's everybody just being so happy that it's finally a guy who's not like suit. It's a guy who's let's have fun. It's Disney World.
That's because he came from parks. Yeah. That's what happens when you come from parks. And you know, here we go. And so the NGE team felt a need to constantly dazzle the Disney brass. So, you know, because Tom Staggs is in charge, hey, I gotta make a good impression for Iger so I can one day be CEO. Right? That's kind of the mentality that's going on now. So now you guys have to work extra hard so I can say, oh, look, I did better than Rasulo. Well, in actuality, just because he took on later in the project and he saw more, like, actual things go on, wouldn't that kind of make it better? Whether or not he was actually, you know, better than Rasulo or not? But, you know, whatever. And that's, so the team had outgrown its original home at Epcot and had moved to Disney's Hollywood Studios, inside a 12,000 square foot soundstage, good old Soundstage 1, which is now where our Toy Story Mania track's going. That's when they built out its advanced R&D lab, which Franklin calls a living blueprint that would sell the vision. We've talked about this before, their set thing, but this is the biggest explanation of. I was looking for pictures of this thing.
I would love to see what the inside of that soundstage looked like until they started construction. Imagine that.
I wish there were
pictures.
pictures.
Do you think that they had like?
Hold on, let's talk about it first. And
then attractions and stuff.
I'm gonna tell you everything that was there. It's all in this paragraph right here.
Oh,
it's great.
I'm so excited.
With typical Disney flair, the soundstage became a storyboard brought to life, with a full-scale living room, including an iMac, which is where the archetypal family would book their Disney vacation via what's now known as My Disney Experience, the website and mobile app for MyMagic Plus. The family's set of magic bands would then arrive by mail in beautiful packaging designed by Frog. Next came the flight arrival stage of the set, which simulated the experience at Orlando International, with actual seats that the NGE team had purchased from the airport. There, family members would first touch their magic bands to a digital access point before proceeding to a replica Magical Express bus. Then came the hotel set, with an actual front check-in desk counters and bedroom furniture from Disney's Contemporary Resort to reflect the new MyMagic check-in experience. There were also mock-ups of the in-park experience, including a main entrance, a mini version of the Haunted Mansion ride to demonstrate how attractions could be personalized with consumer data, a small version of Be Our Guest restaurant concept, merchandising in retail shops, and even a stage exhibiting how MyMagic Plus could influence Disney's cruise line. At Disney, you can't just create a PowerPoint presentation and say, "Here, give me $10 million to build this," jokes Andy Schwab.
That is so cool.
This is how you propose a project. You take
Do you understand? Like, that's an expensive thing to do alone.
Yeah, I know. And this is just to show Iger, hey, guess what? We know what we're doing. Give us money. That's basically what it was. And I dare say it worked.
Like, they did everything. They purchased seats from Orlando International Airport.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It goes back to Walt himself, said a former NGA manager. The story carries the day. Often sources say the theater of selling an idea is more important than the idea itself. Paget told one team member with a British accent, when you're presenting to these guys, sound and act more British. It'll make the presentation go better. He wasn't joking. I think it's kind of a thing with, British people sound more in authority. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
The lab was essential for MyMagic Plus to win buy-in from Disney World's 74,000 employees. We need to get people's minds wrapped all around it, from the finance and creative folks to people running day-to-day operations. Just 3 months into Stag's Park tenure, on March 30th, the NGE team unveiled a detailed lab to him and Iger. Many sources argue much of the vision work was complete by the time Staggs replaced Rasulo. That's what I was saying. Just because he replaced him later on, since you see the finished product with him, maybe it's kind of, bias.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I was under the complete impression that this was like Staggs' idea. Like, this was Staggs and Iger.
No, it wasn't. I mean, Staggs was definitely a part of it in the beginning. Staggs was the original sponsor for it when they brought it to Iger.
But then Rasulo picked it up and
because he had CFO things to do.
Yeah.
So Iger and Staggs were impressed, but Iger cautioned the team not to bite off more than it could chew. According to people in attendance, at one point he recommended the NGE team cut their ambitions in half and only worry about MyMagic Plus at Disney World, rather than at other potential park sites or on the cruise ships. By the tour's end, probably around 9 of the executives ended up with Bob in the last room, and he looked towards Jim McPhee, John Paget, and Nick Franklin and said, "It better work."
Better work.
The phrase had become an NGE team mantra, often referred to as IBFW, or "It better frickin' work." The sentiment made by Iger would express in similar terms to Staggs at the board meeting. Iger, Staggs, and Rasulo went through the soundstage lab many more times. When the CEO would visit, team members would hide behind the soundstage curtains taking detailed notes. If Bob said something, we would immediately go back that night and say, how do we incorporate this? When he came back, we would be saying, as you suggested, we did this. What do you think? That's how you kiss up, and that's how you get ahead, to be honest. Members of the Disney board visited as well, with the exception of Steve Jobs, whose cancer was worsening, RIP. Sources say that, despite not seeing MyMagic Plus in person, he pledged his support. I love what you guys are doing, he is said to have conveyed to this group. You won't get everything right, but what you've been doing and believing that will remain the model for the next 20 years is also not right. Now, everyone knows Steve Jobs is a man of change. He's a man of innovation. He knows that you can't just keep doing the same old thing forever and expect it to work.
Yeah.
And so he's giving a sentiment to the NGE team saying, hey, you can't keep doing this whole pay-per ticket thing. You can't keep doing this whole inefficient method. This is the way of the future. It may have a rocky start, but it's worth it. And I think that advice really stays true today. Yeah. Yes, it might have had a rocky start. Yes, it might not have worked in the beginning, but I think it definitely has paid off. And the NGE crew had visits from other luminaries in the Disney orbit. Pixar Chief Creative Officer John Lasseter, inventor Dean Kamen, and filmmaker James Cameron, who was there to work on Avatar, but he's like, came in and check it out anyway. All toured the lab. And he loved it too. And they also all created momentum with Bob. So yeah, there's that as well. Also, they did things that maybe, they came up with some ideas that some people think were just to wow the executives. They didn't actually plan to go through on them. One was designing a plastic cart for the guests' luggage. It was completely re-engineering the airport experience. They would re-engineer the luggage cart so compact that it would fit through a special Disney X-ray machine without forcing passengers to separate and throw suitcases and backpacks on the conveyor belt. It was sort of a TSA pre-check for baggage, which would seamlessly be transported straight to a guest's hotel room. The team began discussing ways to re-engineer airport X-ray machines, and Paget even organized a meeting with TSA officials. This project could come close to $500,000, said a source familiar with the concept work, and I honestly don't know. Was it real or was it just theater? You never know with these things. I mean, that sounds really cool, but I don't know. It seems very expensive, and you have to work with government people, and government... Yeah, I don't know. Disney's got money to talk.
A lot of red tape with that.
Obviously, Disney has enough money to talk. But could they have made that happen? I don't know. It's very possible that was just for show. In February 2011, the Disney board authorized a budget of nearly $1 million for MyMagic Plus, and Iger told Staggs that it better work. Sources say that the early target date to deliver MyMagic Plus was February 2012. That was optimistic, considering the infrastructure challenge, blah, blah, blah. And here was the big turning point. Should this software fall under IT? Should the merchandising division control the Magic Band? Since the project would completely alter park transactions, admission payments, crowd flow, shouldn't operations take the charge? And what about the Imagineers? Everyone has a claim in this, which we mentioned before.
Yeah.
And the infighting grew intense. Look, let's put it crudely. People were protecting their jobs, which I also said before. Uncertainty with the consequences of the technology raised the stakes. That's what new technology always does with the status quo. If ticketing were to get digitized, many jobs held by traditional ticketing folks might become irrelevant. One source managed NGE's development at the time describes Disney as a culture that is all smiles and happiness, and everyone is going in to give you a hug. But you have no idea who is working against you. You come out bruised and bloody. There was land-grabbing, finger-pointing, and quite frankly, a lot of yelling in closed-door meetings. Disagreement was how we were going to get the end result, which is true. It's a constructive discomfort, which is what Staggs encouraged this policy. A policy of constructive discomfort. You need arguments in order to get, compromise, in order to get the best project. And Staggs himself, he did not engage in the politics. He stayed above the fray, which is where he had to be. You need someone to stay in that role so he can come in and be effective when giving guidance. If someone's biased, not everyone's going to listen to his guidance. Right? And that's kind of the deal here. And the quote from Machiavelli, no one wants change because they're invested in the status quo. It holds true here. Franklin managed to get some teams to collaborate well on the project, but many describe the internal politics as fierce. Sources were present for early in-park tests of MyMagic Plus Enhanced Turnstile Free recall how some Disney groups had cast members attempt to sneak past the gates, in an attempt to prove the system wasn't secure enough. Others argue this was a valid security test. Several sources claim that during a test of whether long-range sensors of the Haunted Mansion ride could identify the Magic Bands worn by customers going by at high speeds, Imagineers purposely sat on their hands as the ride zoomed along to make it harder for sensors to locate their bands. And also, Disney's attests that this is also a valid test. No one knows. Was this just people being annoying? Or...
I would say just being annoying.
Or is it a test? I mean, it's maybe. You never know. So yeah, Imagineering is an incredible organization who's become as institutional as the rest. The dream of building these big icons as part of their creative expression, but when a capital budget shows we're going to invest in the changing and established guest experience rather than spend on a big fixed asset, that doesn't get met with love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then there's, let's see. Here's something also. Other divisions express themselves passive-aggressively. They might see a problem coming, but they don't do anything about it. Like, let them figure it out. Then, late in the game, these folks come in going, we knew this was going to be a problem all along. We were like, really? Where have you been for the last 3.5 years? It's these politics and these arguing that that people
cultivated it to what it is.
Yeah, people might have an idea. People be like, I know this is going to be a problem down the road, but they don't say anything because they want someone else to get punished rather than everyone be lifted,
rewarded. Yeah,
which doesn't.
Well, you know what?
It's just people acting childish, really.
The thing is with that. There's that one team on it, but it has everybody's job entailment in it.
Yeah, I know.
So if you work for, let's say, operations, and you give a suggestion, and they go forward
with that suggestion, they get the credit.
Yes, exactly.
But does credit matter, or does building the good product that everyone gets lifted up for at the end really matter? Because at this point, they're saying, okay, well, I value my job more than I value the success of the company. It's not really a good mindset to have.
This was you have to take a look at the time period. This was a time period where the economy was awful.
That is very true. It is.
Everybody was fighting for their jobs, and if you felt like you were threatened, it wasn't good news for the people that were potentially threatening your job.
That's true, but of course, purposely withholding problems. That's what led to this rocky release, and everyone got blamed for that. Right? The way that this went down and things were broken at the start, everybody got blamed. It wasn't just the people who directly worked on it. So it kind of backfired, didn't it?
I would say so.
In Orlando-based IT groups, we know that a bunch of those groups were just laid off a couple months ago, actually.
Yeah.
They were also working. As IT gained a significant foothold into the MyMagic Plus, some credit the group with ultimately improving the technical underpinnings of MyMagic Plus, other claims it took advantage of the situation to secure greater leverage. Everyone is trying to build the best possible guest experience, but we all have drastically different philosophies of how to get that done. I honestly believe the IT group just thought we built pieces of shit. The feeling was mutual. At one point, IT pushed the division to build its own Windows-based tablets, eventually named the 2400 and 9000 for cast members. One source calls the devices god-awful bricks. We don't need the 3000 piece-of-shit custom-made mobile devices. Parks eventually opted for iPod Touches and iPads that they still use today. People don't pay their rent in altruism. That's true, Spectro. It's very, very true. Of course, I'm looking at this from an outsider perspective who doesn't have their job riding on something.
Exactly.
I think I would still, though, say, hey, listen, I think this will be a problem, and that might earn commendation for me, no? If I say, hey, I found this problem.
What, like give you an in with the project?
Yeah. Like, if I'm going around, like, I found this thing that could break something down the road. Hi, I'm going to tell you. Do I get commended?
See, but that's because you know the outcome.
Okay. But I mean, but I'm not going to purposely, I don't know. It's just me being a good morals person, I guess. I mean,
so let's run a scenario here.
Okay, go for it.
I say I want to make some crazy change to DisCast.
Sure. And
it's going to involve me taking over as the main host. Right. And you feel that could... And I'll be like, I'm going to start having Spectro, Disney Chris, and everybody else on as my co-host. And I kind of start wedging myself into what you do. And I'm like, I'll write the show notes, you know...
See, the only problem there is you're too lazy to do what I do.
I said hypothetical.
Yeah, I got it. Anyway, keep going.
Would you not feel like that kind of questions your position on the show?
Okay, yes.
Like, while me having other people on and me doing this down the road could be good, you don't know how the response to that would be.
Right.
Now let's say it was good.
But now let's say I found some issue that could possibly damage the entire DisCast brand, a brand that I helped create.
So
am I just going to let you go and say, oh, you know, it's his problem, he's the one trying to chisel me out of the show? Or am I going to say, hey, listen,
you're going to be
damage
like,
everything.
Let's see if this works, knowing it's going to fail. Knowing it's going to fail.
I don't know. I don't know if I would do
You'll
that.
be like, that way I could take over and start doing everything again.
Okay, let me just, you know, put in the tyranny of Ryan. Be King Ryan the First over here on DisCast.
Well, no, I think it's not tyranny. It's that you kind of have a better control aspect on it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And then...
So I think it's perfectly justified that people are like, let's let this fail so we can go back to doing our job.
Okay, yeah. So someone at one of the partner companies said, almost half the work was to support a political situation. At the beginning we could move really rapidly, but when it got public within Disney, it changed the way we worked. It became more about fighting to survive another day. So, I mean, yeah. Of course, there's a bunch of hotel doors that need their locks replaced, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
A team of 24 people went and updated all of the rooms. Isn't that crazy?
I completely forgot about that. Updating the locks. How do they do that?
80% of rooms are booked every given day, right?
Yeah.
So they have to go and do the other 20%. Which is crazy.
That's a lot of rooms.
I know. And don't forget the physical infrastructure, which was first built in the late 60s and needed major capital improvements. 283 park entry touchpoints seem to be upgraded. Much of Disney World lacked a Wi-Fi connection, so in order for guests and cast members to take advantage of MyMagic Plus and its mobile apps, the company had to install more than 30 million square feet of Wi-Fi coverage. They sure as hell had no Ethernet networking, and didn't even have a lot of power lines. What? Said a source involved in the construction. It was a huge effort to wire a communications infrastructure that was basically the same size as San Francisco. And then in 2013, which was about 6 months before the DisCast came into being, Disney made a splashy announcement in the New York Times calling everything transformational, blah, blah, blah. They went on to talk about how you could do the happy birthday stuff, and also the Scuttle animatronic could talk to you directly. Almost like a turtle talk with Crush, with
Has that happened yet?
No.
I like how the main direct example hasn't happened.
Yes, I know. But even then, MyMagic Plus was not ready for prime time. According to one source, one internal audit around this time found roughly 250 defects plaguing the park's MyMagic Plus hardware and software systems. Only 250? MyMagic Plus would roll out slowly, bit by bit, over the course of 2013. Meanwhile, the cost to design and integrate DisneyWorld.com with MyMagic Plus soared to around $80 million to redesign DisneyWorld.com.
We'll do it for free.
Remember, Mickey to Mickey, everyone, Disney Chris said. You know, that was actually Frog's idea, the Mickey to Mickey thing?
What's Mickey to Mickey?
The Mickey on your Magic Band to the Mickey on the sensor.
Oh!
That was Frog's idea, to have the Mickey thing, so it'd be, like, obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So there were bright spots. The manufacturing cost had come down to below $5. The Be Our Guest restaurant launched to glowing reviews. The restaurant was the epitome of what MyMagic Plus could offer. Guests who pre-ordered food online or at a restaurant kiosk could sit down and have their meal arrive automatically, blah, 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 blah. This won top innovation honors from the NRA, the Restaurant Association, not the Rifle Association. But even this success story couldn't transcend the hostility. I didn't really go over it with the attritional IT organization. It was like, wait, you're actually going to have a successful launch of a project on time, on budget, as you promised? Because basically the NGE team was doing, like, other divisions' jobs for them. John Padgett got Be Our Guest done before the IT people finished their work on it. And the IT department's like, wait a minute, we didn't finish yet. How'd you launch it? How did that work? We didn't finish our job.
That's what, you know what, I feel like...
But that was in retaliation, because the IT department for the past year was kind of
yeah, I feel like it was one
leverage.
of those, like, something to prove. Like, we need to get this done because we need to prove to everybody that we aren't, like, going to be colossal failures.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Spectra is all done via there's a sensor. I love talking about this. There's a sensor in your Magic Band, right? And there's a sensor in the table, in the actual table. And then that table is then communicated into the kitchen, and then they know what to make, and then the waiter knows where to bring it. And not only where to bring it at which table, but which person around the table, you know, who got the pork, who got the roast beef sandwich. Oh, it's the guest sitting here, and it gives it to you. And they might even know your name. Oh, here you go, Jeremy. Enjoy your roast beef sandwich. Isn't that cool? I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. So basically what happened was Nick Franklin thought that everyone has to come together. We all need to, you know, we have to throw aside our political, you know, all the politics of this and start to actually work together. Within our division, at least. So what they did was they started, you know, everyone started learning about each other. Everyone started, you know, everybody started to get to know everyone. That way there wasn't so much infighting. And that really saved them. The mantra was, we all cross the finish line together or we all fail. So, yeah. And the due date became less of a problem. They started working on getting things done. And,
I love this whole story, like, of how the project came together. It's so, like, I don't want to say, like, a story of, like, a business, like, pushing forward a new project is, like, motivational, but this is such a story of, like, the little engine that could.
Yes, I know. And so then, basically he's talking about how he goes into a Disney World in this January of 2015, and is going on trying everything out. And did you know that Magic Band has cut turnstile transaction time by 30% in the turnstiles?
Oh, really?
And also, Tom Staggs has noted that MyMagic Plus has allowed north of 5,000 more people to enter Magic Kingdom. Over 5,000 people. We don't know what percentage that is of the capacity because they don't give those numbers out. But yeah. And also he notes that Test Track is really the only attraction that has full power creative potential of MyMagic Plus. Apparently guests' wait times, their perceived wait times are
lower.
Are much lower. So a 35-minute wait might feel
well. We
more
looked
like
at that. We looked at that chart. I mean, this is like the actual.
Oh, like the actual wait times, those went down as well. Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
And then when like I said, when I was in Disney in October, all the posted wait times are between like 15 and 20 minutes at Hollywood Studios, and I was like walking on every attraction.
Yeah, I know. Apparently, also, the intent to return and the intent to recommend MyMagic Plus is really high. Overall satisfaction of 70%, which is good. You're talking about the intent to recommend MyMagic Plus, which is great. What else we got? Everyone's saying, you know, parents are loving it. Even elderly people are loving it, and it's great. But honestly, it's not so magical, one cast member says. It's just for your hotel room door and for paying for things. The cast members don't really love it that much. The cast members are kind of like, you know, this isn't that great. And they think that, you know, not everything that they said was going to happen has happened yet. Chief example of that is the Scuttle, the Scuttle animatronic.
I remember a while ago we were talking about the ability to add Mickey calling everybody like by name and stuff, and like having like full conversations.
Yeah. Back into the Mickey thing. He's hanging out with some of the people from the NGE team, right? And they're kind of walking around and they're talking about everything. And he's sitting in the Town Square Theater, right? And he's watching a Venezuelan family gets into the room, and Mickey kneels down to welcome and hug a shy boy, and Mickey starts speaking Spanish. And the kid looks so incredibly like impressed that Mickey's speaking Spanish.
The guy in the Mickey suit?
No, the Mickey voice, the automated voice features are configured to do different languages. And he assumed, this isn't even done with MyMagic Plus, believe it or not. He assumes when the boy enters with his magic band, the cast member somehow received an instant invisible notification that he's a Spanish speaker and turned it on. But that didn't happen. That's not what happens. McPhee acknowledges the system doesn't use MyMagic Plus. The real trick, this sentence kills me. The real trick, which my hosts only share on the condition I not publish it, is quite impressive, but goes out of its way to avoid taking the advantage of MyMagic again. This kills me. So the real trick, which my hosts only share on the condition that I not publish it. So they told him what it was that does that language thing, which is apparently really cool that he says, but he's not allowed to publish it. You know what? At that point, leave the sentence out. I don't want to be tortured with things that I can't know. Honestly.
Interesting.
Yeah, no. Blah, blah, blah. And he goes back into California to talk to the people who don't like the MyMagic Plus idea. And let's see. He's talking to them, blah, blah, blah. Hold on.
You want to summarize? Or
I'm trying to summarize because we're getting towards the...
Yeah, we could just finish it next week.
We can, but we're so close to the end, we might as well just do it. Bruce Vaughn was saying how they don't want to just use technology for the sake of using technology. He was saying that he was talking to Joe Road and Bruce Vaughn about Avatar Land. And, you know, Road was showing him where exactly MyMagic Plus can be put to use in the parks. It's just, you know, some little things. Because they don't want to use it just for the sake of using it. They want to use it for a reason. On February 5th, he's waiting outside Tom Staggs' office, and his meeting's canceled because Staggs is becoming the COO, as we know. And then they're talking about how profits to the parks jumped up 20%. People are spending more money with their things. The stock is at an all-time high. We know it's above 100 for the first time ever now. You know, he has a little meeting with Staggs the next day. Blah, 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 blah. Apparently the project is under budget. A little bit.
Really?
And he claims it wasn't delayed, since there wasn't really a set schedule, to be honest. And then, eventually, the conversation shifts to the future of MyMagic Plus. Since most people are gone. Nick Franklin's gone, John Padgett's gone, they left. Because the project has devolved back into the traditional business. It's not really next generation anymore. So, you know, they kind of got bored with it. Remember Nick Franklin? I think we talked about how John Padgett and Nick Franklin were leaving on the show.
Yeah.
At some point. And we didn't really know about them at the time. We didn't know too much.
We were just saying, some...
We're just like, oh yeah, they worked on MyMagic Plus. That's all we knew.
Yeah.
You were talking about Shanghai. They were saying, I'm gonna keep the music off because the music just ended. Oh no, it didn't. There's a little bit more. We're not gonna put a new track on at this ends. Anyway, this doesn't mean that the Magic Band's gonna be used in every park. It's probably not gonna go to Disneyland and Anaheim because the restructuring costs of everything, which we've talked about. You know, the infrastructure there is gonna be a lot more difficult to change than in Florida, so that's probably not gonna be done. And Shanghai, such a high proportion of guests have smartphones that they don't even need the Magic Band. They could just have an app on the phones with NFC and just do it. Because so many people in China have phones. It's insane. I mean, they can't use most of the internet, but they have phones anyway, so whatever. Then he was talking about... Staggs was making a point that's saying how moving to a smartphone-based MyMagic Plus infrastructure may be more reflective of the realities of the rapidly changing technology landscape. Perhaps it would be foolish to try to keep up with the Apples and Googles of the world when it comes to wearables. We help ourselves being less precious, like, gee, we invented this Magic Band, we've got to use that everywhere. That's not going to help. We'll use it everywhere it makes sense. We don't want to let something we think is cool and cutting edge become a legacy item that we're trying to drag along. And this kind of makes me think, is is Disney actually going to roll out support for NFC and Apple Watch with using that instead of your Magic Band? Do you think they're going to officially do that?
Well, see, now I'm starting to question that.
Because I thought in the beginning that it was going to be against their interest to do that. I thought it was going to be, well, now they're not going to make as much money, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not going to sell you Magic Bands anymore. They're not going to sell you these limited edition Magic Bands. But I think from this, Stags is kind of admitting, hey, the world's changing. This might not be good everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
It might make more sense to just use these systems that have already been put in place by the companies. I think it's very humble of him. If it actually happens, we'll see. And yeah, and after all, as Stag says, this is one of the most collaborative processes that we've undertaken, and we tend to be pretty collaborative by nature, says the guy who headed a team in which everyone was fighting each other for the duration of the project. But yeah, that's going to conclude our talk on MyMagic Plus for this week. It's going to be putting up on YouTube. Make sure you leave us your comments about what you want us to do. We'll have some follow-up if anyone wants to message us on Twitter or anything next week if you guys want.
Yeah.
And yeah, any closing remarks there?
Go MyMagic Plus.
Yes. I like the next generation experience stuff. I'm a huge fan of this. It's my kind of thing. It's my thing. So,
it's the future.
Indeed it is. Darren, now that it's 10:01, would you like to do our outro?
Yeah, thank you guys for watching, and more importantly, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, feel free to follow us on all of our nice little social links, and we shall see you all next time.
Good night, everyone.